Previously, I learned how to make and use a quill pen. I learned how this utensil shaped our modern fonts. Curious to learn more about how lettering and font types have evolved, I decided to find out some more about the printing press. The first movable type printing press was invented in China around 1040, but it never managed to catch on, possibly because of the difficulty of using it with a language that has thousands of different characters. In 1439, Johannes Gutenberg created a similar style of printing press with movable lead letters. With a much more limited number of Latin characters, the press became widely popular across Europe in only a few decades. Prior to this, most manuscripts had to be manually written by scribes, who were only able to do a few pages in a day. With this new technology, European production of books skyrocketed, opening the door to a wider spread of knowledge that acted as a catalyst to transform society and culture for years to come. At the Minnesota Center for Book Arts, I'm here with Tom. He's going to show me how to use a printing press. So far I've learned kind of the history of different writing utensils, from the brush to the quill. I kind of want to learn a little bit more about the printing press.
Absolutely. Well, this is a Vandercook No. 4. It was introduced in 1935 and was produced for the next 25 years.
Do they make more modern printing presses still?
They don't. Vandercook was kind of pushed out by the Challenger and Reprex models, but after a while everything just went digital. Even as early as the 60s and definitely into the 70s. So when letterpress sort of made its comeback in the late 80s and into the 90s, people started discovering these machines.
But there's no manufacturers making brand new models or anything?
No, not these days, unfortunately.
How would this compare to like the original Gutenberg printing press? What's
well, mostly it's just electricity. It's the simple motor on the inside of the machine, just hooked up to the main distribution cylinder here. And there's basically like a bicycle chain hooked up to keep that spinning. That's pretty much it. Everything else is pretty much just basic mechanics. There are two settings for the process. It is trip and print. So I would put it onto trip, put the lever over here, and that just inks the surface of the letters that we have handset here, handset lead type from our type room. Main drum here is changed very minuscule amounts between trip and print. Basically, I can roll this forward and the letters won't print on here, but as soon as I put it on the print, get some paper in there, that's when it brings it down just enough to print onto the paper.
So then for each page like this, you have to manually set each letter like that?
Yep. And make sure to spell it all backwards, set it all backwards, so everything's reading from right to left. Kind of a meticulous process. That's why we have a whole room dedicated to it.
How long would it take someone who's proficient at setting up a page? How long would it take them to make an entire page?
Entire like 5x8 page, I'd say 3 to 4 hours to typeset everything. And then the printing process itself, once everything is locked in on the bed of the press, that tends to go pretty smoothly. So as long as ink coverage is good and paper is where it's supposed to be, you can get your printing done for 100 pages in about an hour.
Let's say somebody was trying to print a book. Would they lay out each page then and then print each page at a time?
Yes, they'd want to make sure that they have all of the editions of a certain page that they want. So they're printing page 14, they're going to get all that set out, get it on the press and print everything from there.
So they would do it page by page and not just set up entire book and letter set?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, part of the reason people like to use the photopolymer process for certain projects.
And the photopolymer that allows you to use a computer then?
Yeah, you can get everything laid out in Illustrator, and you can just print out basically a negative, expose it like you would for a photograph in a dark room onto the photosensitive resin, and then everything gets washed away except for the raised surface, and then we're left with just this little bit of a raised surface.
So it's basically the same concept as the letter type, just allows you to print it?
Yeah, and not touch and lead all the time.
So when was this method invented?
This, I believe, was developed in the 90s, but it hasn't been until, I think, the 2000s that the process came a bit more affordable for more people to use, artists specifically.
With the printing that's done these days, is it more often the traditional letter or this new style?
Well, it really depends on the kind of aesthetic people want for their prints. Letterpress does have kind of a sort of rough charm to it. Everything's not exactly perfect. There's expected to be a kind of a rough quality to some typesetting, printing, but the polymer is not just good for type, but also for being combined with imagery as well. So you can do basically whatever you have on your computer document, you can have on here.
After learning about the press, it's time to start printing. So first, Tom led me over to the next room, where they do the typesetting. Along the walls of the room were various trays of fonts in various sizes.
Well, we can go with some classic Times New Roman.
After selecting my font, it was just a matter of spelling out my word, except backwards.
What we'd use here is our composing bars, and this is just a nice thing to use to lay out the type in. Everything is laid out in the job case format, which we have a diagram up there on the wall.
Having to hunt for each letter and manually place it in reverse order is a bit of a contrast to the quick and simple method of just typing out text on a computer. This might take a while. So are you able to spell a lot of words backwards?
Yep.
After spending 10 minutes to assemble my 4 words, it was back to the printer with my completed frame.
So we got our guy here. We'll get it off the composing bar.
Is there an up or down that usually compose the text?
It doesn't matter. You can always have it situated with your paper. Sometimes if you have something really long, you'll want to have it situated this way, but it's a matter of finding enough to have it all almost packed together and leaving room for the coin to expand. So with the lock bar, really only does so much. I can still kind of move this around here, but mostly it's just keeping that locked in place so that I can tighten it up on the sides. Then we should not have any of our letters be moving around, and we should be ready to print.
All right. First, we applied some ink to the steel cylinder.
And then just putting it back down. And
that just spreads it around evenly then?
Yep. If you want to get some ink onto the letters, the little knob there, press it down to trip.
Okay.
And all you have to do is just roll it forward so that the rubber rollers kind of go over the letters a couple of times. And that should ink those up. Then we'll just get it back in place, put it back up on the print, and then you can grab a fresh piece of paper there.
All right. Hey, I spelled it right. All right, that turned out pretty good.
There it is.
This has been very interesting, just kind of see the history and how we got from the quill to this to computers. It's really fascinating. So thanks for showing me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming.